Hello, leader. Welcome back to the Fierce Factor podcast. It's your host, Kaylee here, and you are tuning in to episode number 210. And this week, I am sharing an inspiring conversation with one of our Pop Leadership Academy members, Nurse Practitioner Extraordinaire, Danielle Oyasu. Danielle is the CEO of Beautifully New Medspa in Park Ridge, Illinois, just outside of Chicago. And she is a sought-after injector with a background in critical care nursing and a nurse practitioner. And in this episode, she discusses her training and mentorship from some of the top injectors around the world and how that mentorship has helped shape her clinical path in aesthetics and wellness. She is a member of the International Society of Plastic and Aesthetic Nurses and the American Med Spa Association. Beyond her work, she is a proud mother of 3 incredible adult children and her beloved French bulldog. And in this episode, we talk about the nuances of business ownership. We talk about Danielle's transition to becoming an empty nester and her background growing up. And I love how she shares this newfound vitality that she has in her 50s and how this has given her a new perspective on aging. She says her 50s, quote, has been the top of the mountain for her. I just love that. She shares her obsession with the client experience, tips for investing in the right people who will pursue the greater vision of an organization. And she discusses her biggest pain points when she came to work with us, Team KLC, around putting systems in place to allow her business to scale up and also for her ability to work on becoming the kind of leader who could have difficult conversations. She talks about her framework for having those difficult conversations, why they're important, and how that's impacted both her leadership and the success of her business. And I just loved this discussion. We had lots of laughs and, per usual, a few heartfelt tears. I'm so excited to share this conversation with you. And P.S., if you are going to Alt in Newport Beach in May, you will get a chance to meet Danielle and have some authentic conversations with her in the IRL. Okay, without further ado, please enjoy this episode. Stop putting your happiness on hold with the beautiful and talented Danielle Oyasu. Hi there, welcome to the Fierce Factor podcast. I'm your host, Kaylee Lindholm. And I think it's time for us women to shift the conversation in business and step into our feminine leadership to do the most iconic work the aesthetic industry has ever seen. Each week, I'll be bringing a powerful dose of strategy, sarcasm, solutions, and sass that will rev up your creativity and ignite your brilliance as you link arms with me along our shared path of personal and professional growth in 20 minutes or less. Let's go. Well, hello, Fierce Factor listeners. Super excited to have you for this amazing interview with our dear client and friend and somebody that I have so enjoyed getting to know over the past, over a year now. I am bringing to you the beautiful, talented, brilliant, and super funny Danielle Oyasu, Beautifully New Medical Aesthetics based out of Chicagoland area.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes. And Danielle, I'm so glad you're here. Welcome to the Fierce Factor.
I mean, talk about a full circle moment. I was like a fan of the podcast. That's how I came to know you. So to do the podcast now, I'm like, I was trying to tell, my husband or people, I'm like, you don't understand. Like, this is like super important. Like, this is great. It's just, I really do appreciate you having me on. So thank you.
Oh my gosh. Well, it's certainly my pleasure. And, we joke about like how with Instagram, we get to fangirl over people like before we know them. And, you were maybe listening to the podcast. Meanwhile, I was watching you on your 50th birthday, post a picture of yourself on a balcony in your bikini. And I was like, okay, goals. I don't know this woman yet, but I need to get to know her. So, I mean, my goodness.
Thank you.
Yes, you are gorgeous.
I had to clear that with my kids first before I posted that. I said, will this make you want to, it's going to be very cringe for you. And they were like, no, do it. And I was like, okay, I've got their permission. I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, I will say angles and all that stuff helps, whatever. But yeah, it was actually a really fun trip too. So
That's amazing. I know that feeling though. I've had to
Yeah,
I kind of have to run. There's the Cooper filter, my 15-year-old,
that's right.
that it's like, okay, is this, are you going to get made fun of because your mom's showing up like this on Instagram, supposedly? So I totally know how that goes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Danielle, tell us, why don't you tell the audience about, I would love to hear your story, a little bit about how you started this sort of path to becoming the CEO of Be New. And did you know from day one you were going to be a big time multi-million dollar business owner?
I sure didn't. So it was a surprise to me as well. I was at sort of a crossroads in my career. I had always, taken the more clinical path as far as I was a pediatric nurse practitioner. So I'd worked in many critical care situations. My last job before I finally moved on from the clinical realm was I worked in the newborn nursery, which I absolutely loved. I got to do all of the newborn assessments, for healthy babies. And that was amazing, but also took up a lot of my time. And at a certain point, it became very obvious that I had to dedicate more time to being home. My kids were in their teenage years. I think I was sending the first one off to college at the time. And it was time to kind of reassess things. So moved on from that clinical realm. And I knew I wanted to keep my hand in the workforce, but I just wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And I just happened to see, I know vividly, I remember exactly, it was Ronna Kennelly posted a advertisement saying that she was giving injecting classes. And at the time, this is a thing now, but that wasn't super, it wasn't a huge thing back in the day, back even 3 years ago, I think, or four back in the day. No, I guess this would now be going on 5 years, which I'm still very discombobulated with time. 5 years. So, now there's a injecting class on every corner. You can go get online, you can go on Instagram, you can do whatever, but she just happened to advertise this class. And I thought to myself, well, maybe I'll try it, see if I like it. I had already tried a bunch of different things, non-clinical related or non-nursing related, just kind of trying to find out what made me happy. I always knew that I loved the aesthetic world myself. I had experienced injections before. I loved what they did for me. And I also like to make people happy. So I thought, why not? The night before the class, I remember I must have had a bad day with my kids or something. I don't know what was going on, but I was like, I just don't want to, I don't want to give up another Saturday. I don't want to go. I don't know what was happening, but I remember thinking of almost not going. And again, a pivotal moment, I decided, no, you're going, dummy. You spent $1,500 on this class. Of course you're going to go. And went. And honestly, from the first injection, I knew that this is what I wanted to do. And that is the truth. I really did fall in love with it at that moment. Came back again for another class on injecting fillers. So the first one was Botox. The second one was fillers. And then I decided I did this in a very unconventional way or non-conventional way. And I know that this is going to irritate a lot of people, but what I did was get ready. I decided to not only learn to inject myself, my husband was my acted as my clinical director. And I started a business using one of his clinic rooms out of his addiction practice. Mm-hmm. So, I don't think that was the easiest way to go about things. But for me, I knew that it was going to be very hard for me to dedicate my time to taking another role as someone's employee. Mm-hmm. I just knew that I really had to kind of be able to work my schedule around my kids at that point. My husband was still traveling full time. He was still really involved in contract management. So my job was really, I had to be the stable force at home too. So I figured, why not just do this? I threw myself into, why not? I threw myself into every injecting class I could find. And again, this was kind of a newer realm. But there were a lot available. And my first conference was Aesthetic Next. I started my business in May. Aesthetic Next was in September. And then from that point on, I kind of found a few people at Aesthetic Next to talk to. Sarah Hamilton was one. She really took me under her wing and really gave me some great advice. She won't remember this to this day, I don't think, but it's amazing how much you don't realize how you're impacting someone else's life. So that part was great. And then my business just kind of took off from there. And I found myself in a conundrum when I did become more successful, because I was completely unfamiliar with how to run a business, clearly, and sought out multiple different business advisors, trying to find the right fit. And I came across Confidence to Scale. That would have been a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. And that I think spoke to me the most out of any other class or any other educational opportunity that I had found. So I appreciate you.
Oh, well, so this is so the irony, I guess, of, right. So here you are at a stage in your life where you're like, I need more flexibility, more freedom, more autonomy. I need to be able to like navigate, work around, the kids' schedules. I want to just like do things on my own time. So you just decide, I'm not going to be an employee. I'll start a business.
Yeah. Start a business. Really, like, that was the less complicated option, I thought, for some reason.
Right. Well, but I don't think you're alone. And I think, like, when you talk about coming into Confidence to Scale, like that program, we had built that for that woman, right? Like, who had this accidental success. Because what happened was, you obviously, didn't end up just being like, as my husband would say, a jobby, right? Where you had like, it was a hobby that you made money at, which you thought in your mind that's what you were going to do. And it suddenly grew its own legs and became, it breathes life into itself somehow, right? And so then you have to know, like, now a new skill, which is, now how do I run a business, right? So what was the biggest surprise for you, like, over this? So this has been a very quick 4 or 5 year trajectory, right? And I lose track. I'm not sure whether we count the COVID years or what. I think that's kind of why it's mushy.
Yeah, COVID did a huge wrench into things. We were closed for 3 months, and we had just sort of taken off. Yeah, I didn't know if we'd come back and I'd have any patients, but I think most of us were surprised to find that after COVID, I think aesthetics just had this huge boom, because I think Zoom calls were a huge thing then. And I think people were actually it's amazing to me how many people avoid mirrors. And so when you're on Zoom, you can't do that. You're forced to look at yourself. Mm-hmm. And I would hear that consistently. They'd say to me, I'm on Zoom constantly and I can't stand the way I look. And I'm thinking, did you not? I mean, I think you look great, but were mirrors not a thing that you, I guess, right. Say to me, I did not want to look in the mirror. So I think that fueled a lot of the aesthetic business. I think people were ready to get out again. They were ready to socialize again. They wanted to go out, looking their best. So I think that also helped a lot. But yeah, that was a surprise to me how COVID did not ruin our business, at least. I was prepared for anything. I wasn't sure what to be prepared for. So,
I mean, it's funny. I haven't talked or thought about it in a while, but I remember COVID certainly gave our business tailwind, in the sense that that's where I had to get really creative and think about how could I build an online platform and really do something impactful at scale, So it was a very interesting experience working with providers who we did not know. I'm literally teaching, here's how you can launch sell retail products on Facebook. We were getting gritty. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So so what now has been for you, what's been the biggest misconception for you about business ownership?
Just what we all kind of thought. I definitely thought that I would have more freedom. I would have this life where I controlled everything around me and I was the one to have the say, when really the business has the say. The business dictates your life, and the better the business runs, the better your life is going to be, which is why I need all those processes in place, because the business is what tells me if I can take a vacation, or if I can, if I can let go on the reins a little bit, or, if I could have a couple more days at home. The better the systems are in the business, the better that will go for me. So I think that's a misconception of starting your own business, is you really do feel like, oh, I'm going to have so much freedom now. It's going to be so much better than working for someone else, but the business has to thrive and survive, and you've got to keep plugging away at that.
Yeah.
In the right way. So.
Yeah. You become the custodian, or the leader of that entire entity now, right? So when you came, let's say you went through Confidence to Scale and through the academy, obviously, now been working with us for a long time. But when you talk about systems and not really knowing the misconception that I'd have more freedom, but I needed the systems to create an environment where the business could self-sustain, essentially, so I could have freedom from it. Is that how have you worked through implementing those systems? Like, give an example of maybe a system that was like out of whack. Or I think a lot of people, the reason I ask, and I want to kind of lean into this, is that's probably the number one question we're asked, or the number one sort of pain point when women come to work with us, is that I don't have systems in place. So like, what is that? What is that?
What systems are in place? So we have different methods of service recovery that like I said, those are systems that are in place, and that everybody knows the drill. Everyone knows that if there's something that goes awry, or if a customer for some reason is not happy, that we have certain steps that we take. And it's interesting. This is a story that most recently happened, that one of our newer employees said to me, or said in a kind of a staff meeting, oh, so-and-so came by and she signed up for her VIP membership, but I forgot to give her bag. So she can just get it next time when she's here. And we were all like,
What's in the bag? Like
it's flag, it's merchandise, it's things that we give them, a travel mug, we give them a hat, we give them, a plethora of just items. It's a treat. It's a nice, yeah. So, not only am I disappointed, because I know that I want the patient to feel like, you signed up for this membership, this is what you get. Yes, could she have gotten it next month? Fine, yes. But everyone in our team kind of knew the answer was going to be to deliver to her house, which was, she lived in town. So they all know my feelings about, and they all know the systems that we have in place. Maybe not for that specifically, but they do know that we go to the nth degree to make sure that a patient is happy or is delighted with their service. So I'm very, very passionate about service to our patients.
Yeah. So it sort of almost sounds like what you're saying is, I'm obsessed. I have an obsession, which I know this about you, with customer service. And we're going to do it better than it. Like, that is what we're going to nail. So the expectation is, what that means here is everybody needs to act, operate, do things in a certain way. And so all of that has to be systematized. And then how do you make sure everybody's following that?
So we obviously have a great office manager, and she is the first point of contact for any kind of service recovery issue. So she has her ear, out when these kind of things happen, and she's our first point of contact. So she knows exactly how to manage every situation, and she knows what I would choose to do too. So that would be our first. And then we just take care of it. We just, you take care of it. You make sure that that patient knows that we're sorry this happened. This is not a normal occurrence here. We want you to feel special. We want you to feel happy. And then this is what happens. I actually just recently received, and we always just go above and beyond, because the thing about it is, every patient wants to feel heard. They don't if you make a bigger deal out of an issue, they're going to be the ones that are like, oh my God, it's not that big of a deal. Don't worry about it. But if you minimize it and just trivialize their concerns, then they're going to feel like, oh, that sucks. Like that is a sort of, not the way I wish that would have been handled. Think about any time you've ever been to, have an issue handled. I remember one time I took my kids skiing. I told the story before, but we took our kids skiing on Thanksgiving Day, and they were kind of grade school ages. And you get those, I don't know if they still do this, but you get notes in the mail like so-and-so was exposed to strep throat.
Lovely.
So I got that lovely message right before Thanksgiving break, and I'm like, perfect. And it was my middle daughter, Abby. So sure enough, we're sitting at the gate waiting for our plane, and she starts complaining of a sore throat. She doesn't feel good. She's sick. We get on board, raging fever.
Oh, no.
We don't land until the evening in Denver, and we have to we have to drive to the ski resorts, which, as you know, it's like a 2.5-hour drive. So we land in Denver. There's no urgent cares available, nothing open. We get the rental car, we drive to the Ritz-Carlton in Beaver Creek and open the door to our beautiful hotel room. She proceeds to vomit like The Exorcist all over the carpet. Like, the mess that she made was epic. It's probably red. She probably drank some juice. I don't know. It was a disaster.
It was like Gatorade and like fish or something.
You're almost like
always, you never barf up like
chunks.
reasonable.
It was disgusting. And I'm just standing there like, okay, I'm sorry. What do I do? So we're grabbing towels. The staff could not have been more. I mean, they were grabbing towels. They ran to the maintenance. They, cleaned it up with gloves. They took care of the whole thing. I was when I say mortified. We're at this beautiful resort, whatever. So we get everyone situated. Half an hour later, there's a knock at the door. They deliver a tray of cookies that, I'm not kidding you, it wasn't just, a few cookies. It was like 50 cookies.
Yeah.
And milk and juice and snacks with a note that said, "We are so sorry for the inconvenience." I'm sorry. What? You're sorry for the inconvenience. Okay. I'm fine. Yeah. So I just will always remember that story and think about how often I have told that story to other people, because it was just such an above and beyond moment. And I tell my team that all the time. There's a med spa on every corner, okay, of our, microcosm. The Chicagoland area, we are inundated. What is going to separate us? What's going to make us unique? And that is the principle that we abide by. We just always go above and beyond.
That's amazing. So, and I do think like that above and beyond becomes viral, right? Like the things it's focusing on like a tray of cookies. How much did that cost the Ritz-Carlton?
That's exactly the point. Yeah. How much did it cost them?
Like now I know, like, okay. I mean, interesting. I did stay 2 weeks ago in Aspen at a Ritz-Carlton as well. And that's why, you get to a point where you're like, am I willing to pay extra, to invest in an experience that I know I'm going to get a consistent result. And I know that no matter what happens, they're going to have my back. And I think that's sort of the point. So let's talk a little bit more about that, because now talk to us about the size of your business now. Because we know you went from, I was, injecting in a room in my husband's practice to not quite the story now. So catch us up to like what the practice looks like operationally now.
So now we're in about a 3,400 square foot office space. We have 4 clinic rooms, 3 esthetician rooms, and about 15 employees. So
and outgrowing it.
Yeah. And now we're outgrowing it again. So always plan for more space, by the way, because you're going to need it. But we have just grown exponentially, and I do have to credit my team. They have completely bought into this vision that I have. And I've always been so passionate about, this is my vision. This is what I want to create for our town. This is what I want to create for our patients. But I need you guys, I need you to do that. And I get so many compliments on our front desk staff, and our all of our staff members are just, they all, I have to say, are also loyal to this cause.
Mm.
I'm extremely blessed for that, because I know that obviously it takes, it didn't just happen. Of course, I did procure this environment, but I couldn't do it without the right people. So that's a huge part of building a successful business, is never underestimate the power that the first point of contact people have. People, I think, minimize that role. And it's really the first impression that a new patient or any patient will get of your business. So invest in them as well.
Mm-hmm.
Not just your injectors or providers.
So it's interesting because obviously the work we do together is focused on your leadership. How do you translate that vision through your team to inspire them to want to take action for their own reasons on the behalf of the bigger vision, right? So I know we so like, as great leaders do want to give so much credit to our team. And you did mention Caitlin, your practice manager as well. We talked about like how great she is at triaging and sort of being the ears, but that stuff doesn't happen overnight. Let's talk a little bit about your how you have transitioned as from being the main provider in the business to now seeing yourself as a CEO, and the importance of leadership for your team and that vision. Talk to me a little bit about what that's been like for you.
I think the biggest point of growth for me was the ability to have difficult conversations with staff members, or difficult conversations with, anyone interacting with your business, even patients, interacting with a patient, and having that conversation in a way that fosters their growth and lets them know that you have their best interest in mind, but it doesn't mean that you're going to cave into everything that they are immediately demanding.
Yeah.
So there's a finesse that's involved in that. There's a genuineness that has to come across, that they have to believe that you want the best for them as well,
Mm-hmm.
whether it be a patient or a staff member. And, I'm not that good of an actress. I do have that feeling in my heart. And I think if you don't, I don't know how successful you will be. You really do have to understand that they have, your employees, if I'm speaking about employees, they have their own issues that they're experiencing at home, or they're, bringing to work their own challenges, their own decision-making processes that they need to go through. And as far as your leadership and being able to mentor them is a huge component. And I think this Leadership Academy really has allowed me to grow in that arena.
Hey, I have a quick announcement, Goddess. I am thrilled to introduce a game changer in the world of female entrepreneurship. Introducing the Alt Experience. This May 17th and 18th in Newport Beach, California, we're setting the stage for something extraordinary. Imagine a gathering where female entrepreneurs share, learn, and connect like never before. The Alt Experience is that rare event where actionable strategies, meaningful connections, and transformational growth come together under one roof. The Alt Experience is all about learning the stories of adversity from thought leaders, sharing this seemingly uncharted and often lonely journey of entrepreneurship. It's the event you've always wished for, designed exclusively for women like you, ready to elevate your business and shatter those glass ceilings. For 2 days, immerse yourself in workshops, mastermind sessions, and talks from industry leaders who are eager to share their journeys and insights. This is where visionary thinking meets actionable advice, all set against the backdrop of the stunning Lido House Hotel in Newport Beach. Spaces are limited, so learn more and snag your spot today at klcconsultants.com/alt. Let's make history together. See you there.
Do you think, because I think, it's important to bring this to light because I think a lot of people do have, we struggle as leaders, right, with understanding the difference between holding team accountable and being, I don't know, being tough on them or being, enforcing expectations and things like that, right? Part of that being having difficult conversations that need to be had. We sort of wrestle with being that kind of leader versus being the leader that fosters this culture of like, playtime and happy and fun and, job satisfaction, right? So leaning into that new skill you have, like, why was that important for you to be able to have difficult conversations? And why do you think it was hard for you before?
I'm not sure why. I think it was hard because I'm often misunderstood or misinterpreted. And I think the more you avoid just getting those feelings out on the table and being direct and being, clear is kind. You have to be clear and you have to be the more vague or the more, and actually I have these conversations with Caitlin all the time because the more things you leave to interpretation, the more someone may misunderstand your message. So, I forgot actually the initial question, but I'm really not sure why that was so hard for me, but I do oftentimes feel misunderstood because I feel like being the bad guy, that's not fun. Nobody wants that. But I also I wanted my employees to understand that just because I have to say no to something that you're asking for doesn't mean that I'm going to say no to everything or that we can't have fun or that, I don't want to foster your growth. So I think there just has to be a balance. And I think they know that now, and we can have these conversations and they know that, again, the business is directing whether or not I can say yes to something or I can, we can move on to whatever you're asking. But it's really not even me making the decision. It's what is best for the business. And I think now they all really understand that.
Mm-hmm.
I drill that a lot.
Yeah. Do you how would you coach somebody who is like, I'm afraid of what my employees will say, or I'm scared to have these conversations with them? Like, is it what went through your head that got you to this point? Like, how would you coach somebody to have a difficult conversation with an employee?
What got me to that point is not having those conversations and having a few relationships deteriorate in a way that wasn't, I have regrets about the way that I even showed up as a leader, because I think had I just been clearer about what the expectations were, and had I said, this isn't going to work, your behavior is not acceptable. But I think when we're stressed and when we're afraid of someone's reaction and we don't want to have to deal with those moments, the problem is just going to snowball. It's not going away. Believe me when I tell you, it is not going away. So the quicker you can have that conversation, I think, and everybody feels better about the situation. And I think we've had to do it a couple times lately in a situation. And, I feel like everyone walks away feeling better because it's like, had you just come to me and said, this is what you were feeling, or this is what your concern was, instead, you're letting everything build up inside. You're taking it to other people. Let's just get it out on the table. And that is my philosophy now. And I do feel like it has helped tremendously with the running of the business.
Mm-hmm. Do you credit your ability to have these conversations, to be clear about what you want and to be able to communicate it to your team? Do you credit that to how well your team operates now?
Yes, absolutely. So I think any leader has to really look, and you hit on this point many times, you really have to look internally and figure out what it is about yourself that's kind of holding you back, or what is it about yourself that you are avoiding this, or you really have to be very introspective and figure out what you're bringing to the table. What is your wounded inner child coming to play? Because It often does. And
I mean, have you not looked in the mirror? I mean, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but like, have you not looked in the mirror and been like, who are you? Like, what? Like, grow up. Like, I have those moments sometimes where I'm like, okay.
oh yeah,
Like,
I have to check myself many
yeah,
times. What is going on here? No, inner child Danny is not coming out to play. You're going to be a mature leader and you're going to have emotional regulation. And so I think we're all human and we all have these feelings that sometimes we need to just work through.
right. Let's talk about your transition. That's obviously it's not an overnight process, but I know something that's been an important like sort of area of focus and the work we've done together is how do I transition into a more visionary role in the company in which I'm not spending every waking hour injecting, but I love my patients and, they come to me for me. And look, like your business is only it's still young, but it's grown so quickly and it needs more of you to wear that CEO hat and to like really think and plan. So let's talk a little bit about what that process has been like, extricating yourself from the day-to-day injecting and just service delivery in your business.
Yeah. So we're still a little bit in the process of doing that.
Yeah.
But the more and more that it does happen, the freer I feel to be more creative with different ideas that we have or different programs I can put into place. So I think everyone sees that. Everyone sees that, when I do have a little more free time, new things are coming, better programming, better systems. Everyone is happier. The business is happier. So it's become a necessity. And like I said, it's not that I don't enjoy injecting, and the passion that first brought me here, I don't want to lose that. I never want to lose I never want to lose the enthusiastic part of that, I guess, that portion of the business. But I also am proud of the way that my business has grown and the way that we've managed that as well. So I think there's a happy medium. And I think that we're in the process of finding that right now. But I do foresee that happening more and more. And I think that's a good thing. I think, I'm the transition hasn't been easy, like I said, but it's very necessary. If you are intend on taking your company to the next level, you can't do it all. You've got to free up some time to do that.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because it's such an emotional process. That's, I think, we think of it logistically, right? Like, okay, we get that provider 70% productivity and and what happens is we are like, wait, but this is my baby. My patients want me. What does it mean for me? Will I be bored? Like I remember talking to one of, our academy members and she was saying like, she called me and she was like, I'm in the lunchroom right now and I'm by myself. I don't know what to do. Like she was like literally lonely. She was like, I can't believe I have time on my hands, and then you
feel TikTok.
Yeah.
I'm on TikTok.
I know. So, but it's been, I think for you, like a lot of transition in your life. So it's building this really beautiful company, investing in becoming a leader who's capable of really systematizing, building operations and creating a more flexible experience for yourself because that things are dialed in back at the ranch when you want to leave. Meanwhile, you are selling your like family home, right? Moving to the city and becoming an empty nester. So like what's that been like?
So it's been great. Honestly, and I've said my 50s have been the mountaintop. I'm repeating something. They've been the Mount Everest. They've been just everything that I've worked for in my life. And I know. I know. I get emotional about it too, because I don't think many people realize, when they look at my life, they think they see a certain person who's at a certain level, who's gotten to a certain level of success. And I'm going to cry. I think that there have been so many things that I've had to overcome. I did not have an idyllic childhood. My sisters and I, we suffered emotional and physical abuse, and I had a lot of shame about it for years. And I've had to really work hard to not be that person who's ashamed of her past. But it made me a stronger person. I recently read the book. My son made me read this book called The Midnight Library. And I don't want to give too much away, but it does really touch on what your life could have been like had you made different decisions, or you've been born into a different situation, or whatever. And look, we've got this one life to live. And the other thing that's kind of spurred on my wanting to just not put my happiness on hold anymore is we've lost some friends lately of our age group. And I've had some friends diagnosed with devastating illnesses and things like that. And the more I put off being happy, or let's just say I didn't want to put that off anymore, because I don't know what the future is going to hold. So it was the right time for us to make this decision. We've always kind of planned on moving back to the city, but after COVID, things kind of took a turn for being a little bit tenuous as far as what is it going to look like down here. And it certainly has changed. I mean, it's not like you don't have to be careful walking around or whatever, but we figured we're going to take the chance and just make a decision that works for us. I'm loving it, and we're loving it so far. So it's only been 2 weeks. We sold our house in a day. So I just believe,
everything it happened so fast. I feel like
everyone does that too. It happened so fast. We've been thinking about it. We've been talking about it. I mean, since our kids were little, what are we going to do? But I did say to my husband in January, and there were some circumstances, like I said, that, I just really started to think we only live one life. And I'm not going to wait and put my happiness on pause. So I am in the me, myself, and I era, and this is the way it's going to be. So yeah.
That speaks to me on such a deep level. I can't even explain it. I read this past year, his name's Bill Perkins, and he wrote a book called Die with Zero. And I keep putting it on my husband's dresser because we have completely different perspectives about spending money and doing things. And obviously that's a good thing. It's good that, we're not all shoving acorns under our mattress, and we're not all off trying to buy things we can't afford. But living life, to me, when you say to stop putting your happiness on hold, that can mean so many different things for different people. And I feel like, if you're listening to this and you're hearing stop putting your life on hold. What does that mean? It could be taking a risk to invest in your business in a different way. It could be walking completely away from your business. It could be, or something tiny, you know what, I'm going to join that club, or, whatever, buy that thing, spend more time with the people, so you're just such an inspiration, and I appreciate you sharing that. To hear that, I always, this, you're just a few years ahead of me, and you're hang in there, okay. In the field every weekend. I'm this is my life, seriously.
God, those weekends on the fields, I'm telling you, I have PTSD. You can't plan anything, because it's they may advance to the tournament, but they may not, and they may be playing, but we're going to make you come back Sunday anyway, so you can't go home.
It's crazy.
Whatever, we can get into a whole nother subject on travel sports, but we do what's best for our kids, and we make different choices when we have a family, and I wouldn't change a thing. I got to know, I will say, with the travel sports and things like that, I got to spend so much time with these kids. And we are such a close family today. So I have to I have to believe that that was part of it. As much as it inconvenienced me and as much as it wasn't what I would be choosing to do at that given time. I do feel like
it's a period. Like
yeah,
it's a season. That's a better word. It's a
yeah,
season, right?
yeah. I never thought it would end either. I really didn't. And all of a sudden it's over with. I was not one of the people who were like, oh my God, you're going to be so sad. I'm sad. I'm sorry. I was not sad. I was fine with moving on from travel sports. But, they do move out before you know it. And they're wonderful human beings. And I'm so blessed to have that. And I have to believe again, like I made the right choices for the time that we were in, and you're making the right choices too. So, but again, life does not stop at 50. I thought it did. I honestly did. I was like, well, I guess that's the end of things. I don't know. Guess I'll pack it up and get the wheelchair out. I don't know what's going to happen.
I think I think you're changing that, right? Like, I mean, I don't know if the cat's out of the bag and what you're building in your business. So I will let you say that if you want to, but like, I think just, creating an environment where women like know that, there's still a lot of vibrancy, like that you get to like, there's still juice to squeeze out of the lemon, like after, right. These like years of, and I can say too, like I work with a lot of women like in their 30s, very successful women in their the stage of 30s with younger kids even than I have. And it is exhausting and it is a lot. And it also is comforting to hear like, hey, you're in it's a season. Like this is what you got to do, for now, and enjoy it the way you can.
Right.
Danielle, I'm curious because thanks for sharing. I know the vulnerability. I can only imagine, that you've experienced sharing your story of your childhood and growing up and having, humble beginnings and being a product of abuse and, like not identifying as that, but like learning how to grow and release the shame that maybe you naturally had from that experience. And now you've built something that has created such a tremendous opportunity for you in your life and uncapped really like this potential to really soar. And you said, I'm in my me season, which all sounds really great, but like, how have you worked to be able to allow yourself that kind of success in your life that you have now, having come from, the background that you have and gone through the trials?
Yeah. Well, to be fair, I see a therapist once a week and she's specializes in trauma counseling. So I really do believe in therapy. And again, I hate to keep using the same word blessed, but I found her kind of by happenstance. I got a recommendation from somebody, and I think it's been about 2 years now, and I've been consistent with it. I made that commitment to myself because there were a couple of things going on in my family where, family dynamics are so tough and it's very hard. You experience your own truth. Everyone's got their own truth. How do you meet in the middle? How do you keep your relationships happy and stable and things like that? I have an incredibly supportive husband. He never made me feel broken. I'm going to cry again, but so that helps when you have your partner who's very, very, I guess, healing in many ways because, and your relationships with your kid, my relationships with my kids are very healing too. So I didn't want to let it define me. I wasn't going to let that happen. I know everyone deals with things differently and some people really do let it take them down. I'm one of those people that always looks forward. I hate looking backwards at what could have been or what, but not that it doesn't bubble up from time to time. It really does. There's always, it's always there. And like I said, I've had to really work hard at suppressing that shame. I didn't do anything to bring that on. It wasn't my fault. But it did happen and it's a part of me. And like any good or bad thing, it helped shape I don't want to say helped, but it shaped who I am today.
I mean, I can only imagine how your ability to overcome adversity and has impacted your ability to endure the trials and tribulations of business ownership. I mean, I can't even, I think I've learned a lot about you through the process of enduring challenging times and watching how your brain works and you work through things. And one thing I'll say that, and I've shared this offline with you too, but just to give you the credit you deserve, like you have an uncanny ability to reframe and see the positive in things. And I do think you have such a lighthearted spirit about hard things, like in a really great way, in a really, really productive way. And that like, hey, this isn't the end of the world here. Like, oh, this happened. What are we going to do about it? And it's so refreshing. And I can only imagine too, like how, when you get to lead from that place, like, I mean, I've met your team and I think it's pretty incredible. So yeah, I think it's awesome.
I'm so lucky to have them. My husband's an ear physician and he has an expression, it's not an airway. Whenever I would get upset about something going on with the kids or whatever, it's not an airway. Everyone let's chill.
Like you have another arm.
Yeah, you don't have stress until you are trying to get someone intubated who you can't help. So I do try to come from that place of, let's all just take a breath. It's going to be fine. We can get through this. Yeah, I've been through a lot. So I think that has helped. And I think people develop resilience. I think some people really develop resilience and some people let it take them down. And like I said, I just wasn't going to let that happen. So for whatever reason, I don't know why, but.
Yeah. So you mentioned just a couple names of like, I'm just curious because I've never asked you this question. And I didn't prepare you for this either, but you mentioned a couple names of women that, you felt like helped you kind of along the way. Do you feel like you have mentors, like, are there other women that you would credit or that you would say like, these are people that really helped guide me through this process over the past 4 to 5 years?
Yeah. I've developed many friendships within our industry. Kim Burke, who's in my actual same kind of microcosm of our aesthetic world. We're both in the Chicagoland area. She and I have a great friendship. Danny Scher from Sparkle Aesthetics. We actually used to really try to meet for dinner and kind of bounce things off one another, and all of us together. I've had different reps from the industry really support me and really give, Scott Bunner from Galderma has been very instrumental in my success. He believed in me. He was one of the first people to believe in me. So I always give him credit. He hates when I do this, but I do really appreciate his friendship. But as far as people I admire, it's funny because we had this conversation earlier and I said, whether or not you like a lot of these OGs in the industry or whether or not however you feel about them, they walked so we can run. Mm-hmm. And that's the truth. They were the people who paved the way because this industry wasn't like this 5 years ago or 6 years ago, but they made this possible. So whenever I see someone who, has been around for a while and, sometimes you think to yourself, should I go and say hi to them? Or what do you think? Are they going to?
Yeah.
I don't, and now I wouldn't have those feelings, but I'm just saying, like when you first are starting off, and I respect them no matter what my personal feelings may be. You have to give them your respect.
Right.
So, yeah. So, but of course, there's many people that I emulate, and Nikon Rivera is a wonderful teacher. I've taken many of her trainings, and she's just one of those people that gives you the world. She's just shares whatever. There's no holding back. She's always very reasonable in what her pricing is and things like that. So I really do love learning from her. And there's many. If I start naming people, I'll leave people out, but yeah.
No, I love that because I feel like it's easy to talk about like where the industry's going and the frustrations and all of the, and the competition. But I also think it's really helpful to recognize that there are a lot of really great people who are working independently and collaboratively to advance the industry in the right direction. And so I think they'll appreciate the mentions as well. So final question for you is now that we're in it's the Danielle era. Like what? Yeah. So what's next? Like where are you headed?
I don't know. I have some thoughts, but I'm just getting started. Let's just say that. So I have things maybe that I think of in my horizon that maybe I don't always utter out loud, but I take the time to journal a lot. I'm very big into manifesting. And so we'll see. I look back at my journals from year to year, and it's always surprises me how many things that I wrote down the year prior that are now in existence. Mm-hmm. So I'm a very big believer in manifestation. Mm-hmm. So we'll see, but you don't worry, you're stuck with me for a while.
Yes, and I'll see you at alt.
It's going to be an alt, which is going to be, let me tell you, that is going to be so amazing because you can't put a price on the value that you get from all of these dynamic women being in one area together. Whenever I go to a conference, what I've started to find is that the value to me was the networking and just, learning from others. So when we had our retreat in the fall, mm-hmm. and met a lot of the people we just kind of talked over in Zoom.
Yeah.
Leadership Academy. So sitting around the fire pit with a drink and just all talking about, hey, what are your thoughts about this? What do you do about this? Or in between our massages, we all, got together and had these great
roughing it.
Our massages. Yeah. So I'm so excited. I think it's going to be great. And I'm just here to say, if you haven't signed up yet, I don't know if are there spots available. You should.
Yeah, there's still a few spots. Yeah.
It's going to be,
yeah.
It's going to be great. And it's not always the people that you would expect. That's what's so funny is, we have these people in our industry that we put on a pedestal, we all flock to, and we're all like, oh, so-and-so is going to be there. I met people that I would not have known even existed because they're not big Instagram people. They're not big, whatever, but they have built successful businesses. They have amazing ideas. They're so dynamic. I just really appreciate that opportunity. So when that first came about, I was actually busy that weekend and I was like, oh, so mad. And I sort of switched some things around because I was like, no, this is going to be good.
Gonna unbusy myself. Yeah, mm-hmm. I know. Well, thank you for that. No, I'm excited. And I agree with you. I think it's a gift that I get to, be blessed with conversations on a regular basis with women like you and, other women who've been on this podcast and some who haven't, that are just like fly under the radar, but are absolute joys to be around, wealth of knowledge, and are willing to just pour out and give, to other people. So, we had recently, I'll give Heidi a shout out because I just think she's one of them that she's so brilliant, but she doesn't play politics.
No.
And if you ask her, she can tell you like it is, and yet she's come work with me. Here's my protocols. Here's how I do this. Complete open book, huge heart, typical, I say Midwest. Minnesota's Midwest, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. She kind of, like that giving, and so she'll be there. I'm just really excited to get everybody back together, obviously from Academy and others. So it's going to be a good time. So excited to see you. Danielle, this has been such an amazing conversation. Thank you for sharing openly and with your heart about all this, truly, it's just been a joy watching you, and I will continue to be, just watching you climb. And also to say that like it just begins like at 50, like, let's go, ladies. Like, yes. Like, I love that. It's so encouraging. So how can people follow you, and, support you and share in the journey?
Yeah. So I'm at, Danielle at Be New, AT, not the @sign. I'm so dumb when I pick names for things, I'm telling you. So Danielle at Be New on Instagram, and Beautifully New has its own Instagram page too. That's the name of our med spa, and it's in Park Ridge, Illinois. So
awesome. And Danielle does the best Instagram stories. So oh my gosh, she is a crack up.
I don't know. I just let it all fly. Whatever.
Oh, I love it. I love it. So, all right. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Danielle. And I will see you soon.
Sounds good.
Listen, leader, if you're vibing with me here, hang tight because I have a brand new resource for you. You are a successful, confident, powerful woman who just isn't into being average. No, you have a calling. And part of that calling is requiring you to level up. And I know that if you're working across the next $1 million milestone in your business, you need to be in the right circles. And perhaps that's why you found us. I'd love to invite you to join The Blueprint, a weekly resource for inspired, provocative thinkers who are taking this conversation to the next level. Get access to free business tools, podcast supplements, guideposts, and direct communication with me and my expert team. And of course, a masterfully curated circle of women making big moves and disrupting the status quo in aesthetics and wellness. You can link directly through the show notes or head to klcconsultants.com/blueprint. It's time to elevate. See you there, goddess.